It's a good thing that House of the Dragon has steered clear of the trap that many prequels fall into, too many direct ties to Game of Thrones during the majority of its existence. It is made easier by the approximate 170 years that have passed between the two series, but the franchise links haven't exactly been nudge-nudge, wink-wink either. Alternatively put, it had until the conclusion of House of the Dragon Season 2. It has Daemon Targaryen seeing Daenerys Targaryen, a White Walker, and the Three-Eyed Raven, among other things like Rhaenyra Targaryen on the Iron Throne, even though much of the narrative is centered around it. Although Daemon's vision makes sense in the program, I don't think it's a good fit for how Game of Thrones ends. I've always supported Season 8, even the last episode of the show, but these kinds of obvious connections between the two programs are detrimental to both. Aegon the Conqueror's Song of Ice and Fire prophecy and Rhaenyra's necessity to sit on the Iron Throne are two of the House of the Dragon's connections to the meanings contained in Daemon's vision. All well and good, but then Daemon bends his knee. It is logical. The fact that Daenerys Targaryen and the White Walkers are so prominently shown, implying that she was the key to stopping them, isn't so wonderful. In fact, it appears to be implying that Daenerys is the prince who was promised, or princess in this instance, since it not only features Dany but also does so after a White Walker, a red comet, and her dragon eggs. It draws a clear link between the Aegon prophecy, which propels the narrative of Daemon and Rhaenyra, and Daenerys' eventual role as the hero who would vanquish the White Walkers and hold the Iron Throne. Naturally, the issue is that the events of Game of Thrones Season 8 have already taken place, and House of the Dragon is laying the groundwork for a future that never materializes. You may debate all you want about how crucial Dany was to stopping the White Walkers, and it's true that the Night King most likely would have prevailed in the absence of her and those who followed her. However, she did not sit on the Iron Throne during the Long Night, and Game of Thrones ever revealed the identity of the prince that was promised, doing nothing at all. Since Rhaenyra's bloodline is thought to be the source of the prophecy's savior, it makes sense to use the prophecy for her story. However, I think it's odd that the prophecy would so strongly predict future events when we already know they don't. It's strange that the Three-Eyed Raven was included as well, since once more, Game of Thrones never truly explained it. I truly enjoyed Daenerys' journey in Game of Thrones Season 8, even with her transformation into the infamous Mad Queen and her death at the hands of Jon Snow. However, House of the Dragon's direct connection to it through Daemon's visions only helps to emphasize its shortcomings. A lot more time with the White Walkers as the main threat, and then more time with Daenerys taking their place as the antagonist, as it were, would have been needed in the rushed final season of Game of Thrones. In fact, each could have had its own season. I was always particularly irritated by the show's lack of attention to the prince that was promised or Azor Ahai prophecies, as well as its scant explanation of the White Walkers and the Three-Eyed Raven. Interestingly, the show frequently attempted to minimize these kinds of strong fantastical elements. It enjoyed the sight of the dragons, but much of their charm was taken away. Daemon's visions delves deeply into those same fantastical elements, illustrating how Game of Thrones could have treated them more skillfully. It would make far more sense to add them here if we knew the identity of the prince that was promised or had more lucid explanations for the White Walkers. However, we don't, thus I do believe it to be an error. Any prequel that focuses too much on setting up its parent program instead of concentrating on its own storyline runs the risk of becoming a trap. It starts to focus less on the actual plot and more on name drops, links, and allusions that will make viewers become familiar with the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme. Things I've seen in a lot of other franchises, including the MCU and Star Wars. Easter eggs are of course a lot of fun, but they should be more incidental than central to the narrative. I absolutely enjoy how Aegon's dream is used for the most part, which may seem contradictory, but that's all because of how it influences the House of the Dragon story. It serves as the catalyst for several character arcs and, ironically, marks the beginning of House Targaryen's downfall. It also brings about devastation in Westeros, despite the fact that the realm was meant to be united by it. It doesn't make sense to me unless I consider how swiftly the White Walkers were vanquished, and what that signifies for Game of Thrones. Here the situation is the same but considerably more dire. The more House of the Dragon seeks to establish a connection with and capitalize on Game of Thrones, the more it will draw attention to and dominate the show. The prequel can stand alone as a standalone work since it has a compelling tale and a cast of excellent characters. Daenerys Targaryen and the White Walkers are necessary for it, and their inclusion would actually make it seem less cheesy.